Hi everyone, this is Dave with Media Digitronics. In this video, I wanted to show you how you can use ScrapPage to pretty quickly put together a cluster. That is, to use a number of your design elements and throw them together into a very appealing pattern and just save the whole thing as a cluster. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open, now let's don't do a picture project. I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to open just a color background. And I'll just go with a square, and that way we'll be at 12 by 12 to begin with. Now, remember in a previous video I showed how we use textures to create different objects using, or different textured objects using just pretty standard things you might have laying around like flower pictures. Okay, so I made these three, and let's bring these in just so we can use these as our starting point for making a cluster. All right, so let's move these down here. We'll resize them a little bit, maybe rotate that one around, something like that. We'll size this one down a bit and set it here, and maybe size this one down a bit and set it over here. Now, if you don't like that order, that's okay. You know, this one's on top, this one's in the middle, and this one's on the bottom right now. You can always do the different. You could say bring this one to the front, for instance, and then you might want to send this one to the back. All right, so now you've got a different order. Now you can also, if you wish, you could put a shadow on these. So if we went up here and did our shadow, we might want to run a shadow, something say like this on that particular piece. And on this one we could say, hey, let's just match it to what we did on the other one. And on this one we could just say, hey, again, let's just match it to that. Okay, so now they're all shadowed. In addition, if you wanted, you could actually bring in other things. Let's say we brought in this ribbon. I think, how about this leaf here, and this ribbon and this ribbon. Okay, so we bring those four elements in, and let's, for right now, just move them out of the way a little bit. We don't want to do other things here. You recall how in the previous video, I used a texture to give a different look to an object. So how about we do that again? I'll just go in here under Edit, and I'll go to Artistic and Texturize, and this time I'll just stick with one of the standard textures that comes with ScrapPage. How about we use Woven 3? Okay, so there, we just gave that leaf kind of a material, kind of a fabric look as well. Probably I'd like to have that maybe be behind this particular thing, so I'm just going to send it all the way to the back. So the leaf sits back here now. I might want to give it the same shadow as I gave everything else, so I'll just tell it, hey, I want to match whatever shadow I had before. So there's the leaf sitting there. We can rotate it around if we don't like exactly the look that it's given. Now, what am I going to do with these ribbons? Well, suppose I want this ribbon to be behind that object. Simply what I do is maybe blow it up in size a little bit, maybe rotate it around and say, hey, I want you to be situated so that you're behind this object, in front of that one, and behind everything else. Well, what I have to do is have that object selected, then reselect the ribbon and tell it using the Reorder Layer tool that I want to put that ribbon such that it is behind the previous object. So now if you see here it is in front of the leaf, but behind everything else. Now if I took another ribbon and brought it over here, for instance, and let's say I blow it up in size, let's rotate it around a little bit the other direction here, and I blow it up in size and say, hey, I want this one to be positioned such that it is behind the purple flower, but in front of the red carnation type flower down here. Well, all I would do is I would select the purple flower that I want it to be behind, and I would select the ribbon again, and go back to the Reorder tool and tell it, hey, I place it behind the previous object. So there, it's behind there, it's in front of the first flower. Now we'll take the last object we have, which is this ribbon, and let's blow it up in size again, and we'll rotate it around here. And in this case, I think I'll just set it something, say like this. It can be anywhere. Let's move it a little more. I think I'll rotate it so that it's further down here like this. And in this case, what I want to do is I want to set it behind this red flower, and I'll leave it in front of everything else. There's no rhyme or reason to this. You can do whatever you want. But if I pick this flower and then reselect the ribbon and tell it again that I want it to be behind the previous object, you can see that it now lies above everything else, but is only behind this object. Now, before I leave these, I should probably, of course, edit, or not edit, I should shadow these things. So let's shadow these ribbons and give them a fairly strong shadow. I'll give it that one and this one here. Oh, let's just go in and match it. We'll style it to match the previous, and we'll tell it, hey, we want this one, not reorder, I want to style to match the previous. Okay, so now everything's got a shadow on it, and there's my cluster. Now suppose you wanted to save this as a cluster. Well, you could simply eliminate the background right away and save this whole thing, but it would have a lot of extraneous stuff over here that you don't necessarily want in your ping. Just would make it larger and wouldn't give you any additional information on your screen. So one of the games you can play, it's a little trick that you can play in Scrap Page, and that is I'm going to add a color panel here. And I'm going to send this color panel straight to the back. So I'll send it to the back so it's behind everything, and then I'm going to blow it up so that it encompasses my objects that I have. And I want to leave a little extra space just for the shadows here. So let's move this over here so that it's there and something like that. All right, now this particular square now, or rectangle, gray rectangle, encompasses all of the other objects that are in the cluster. So what I can do is then I can tell Scrap Page that, hey, I want you to fit the background to whatever image is selected, in this case the gray rectangle. So of course it tells me that this is a non-reversible procedure. So I'll go through here and it will do that, and there, just like that. Now you can see if I select this, that this gray background, or this gray rectangle, is still floating around in the picture. I don't really want it anymore. It served its purpose just to resize everything, so I'll delete that out. And now I've got this, but if I save this, this would still have a white background, and that wouldn't be what we wanted. We want this object, this cluster, to be something you can lay over anything you want in your layout. So one of the other things you can do in Scrap Page is you can change the background. Now we've always worked about changing the background color, but this slider down here changes the background's opacity. So if I take that all the way down to 0 and apply that, it's computing a high resolution variant of the cluster right now, but you can see the background is now gone. So now I could go in here and I could save this thing as a ping, and I'll go up here and where we were here in just 1 second when this recomputes, and we'll say, hey, fine, I want to save this, and I'll just put it back where it came from in my design elements. Let's just call this fabric cluster. Okay, so we'll save it as that. Now if we wanted to use it, we could go in and let's start a picture project again, and I'll bring in that one of the papers that we used, this color paper that I used to make some texture backgrounds earlier. In order to do that, of course, I have to go in here and I have to select and go to Edit, Artistic, and Texturize, and I'll go get one of Snickerdoodle Designs textures up here in my my Dropbox folder. And here I have, I like this one. Let's try that one again. All right, so we'll bring it in, and maybe I'll take it down to where it's a light variant of that. Okay. Now I've got my background. Now all I have to do, let's lock that in place first to make sure that we don't lose it or move it around. Now all I have to do is go get my cluster. So I put the cluster in Design Elements, and it was called Fabric Flower or Fabric Cluster, and there it is. We'll open it up. We'll bring it down here and blow it up in size a little bit and set it something like that, so we can now use that. We could also, if we wanted to, bring it in one more time, and we'll open it again, but this time I'm going to shrink it down in size and rotate it around, and I'll stick it up here in this corner or something like that. So there you, in very short order, you've put together a cluster that's reusable again in any of your layouts. Now out here, of course, you could put frames, you could put journaling, you could put pictures, and anything else you wanted out here. So that's how you build and use clusters in Scrap Page very quickly. Until the next time, this is Dave. Goodbye.